Hello everyone, we are going to see logical clocks in distributed system. There are two kinds of clock. One is the physical clock of a computer and another one is the logical clock. So what is a physical clock of a computer? It is the hardware clock of computer. So in distributed system, why this physical clock is not useful? Because when every computer or every system coordinate with each other, they coordinate using the timestamp of every machine. So when this coordination is taking place, what happens is there will be a skew or a drift. So skew is nothing but variation between the machines in timing. Okay, so for example, in one machine it is 12 hours, and in another machine it will be 12 hours 2 seconds. So there will be variation of clock. Similarly, there will be the variation of frequency in which the clock rate changes. Okay, so there will be a difference in timing between machines, because of which the coordination will not be effective. So in order to avoid this logical clocks were introduced. Okay, so this logical clocks use the concept of happen before relation. So what is a happen before relation? Consider two processes A and B. We denote the happen before relation as A less than B, where less than is the symbol used to denote this happen before relation. So what is this happen before relation? Event A happened before event B. It means that clock of A will be taking place. Okay, clock of A will be less than clock of B. It means that so the time taken for A will be less than time taken for B. So we denote the happen before relation as C of H happen before T. Okay, H is the happen before relation and T is the time stamp. Okay, so to exhibit this happen before relation, logical clocks were used. Okay, so this logical clocks are of three types: scalar clock, vector clock and matrix clock. So we are going to see about this scalar clock, vector clock and matrix clock. So we are going to see about the scalar clock. Scalar clock was introduced by a person called Lamport. So only it is called as the Lamport clock. So we are going to determine the timestamp for three events: send event, receive event and internal event. So whenever an event happens in a same process, this is what we call it as internal event. So okay, so after one is an internal event and two is an internal event. Okay, and also a send event and a receive event also takes place. Okay, so we are going to determine the timestamp for send, receive and internal event based on two rules. Okay, so rule 1 says that Ci is the timestamp on a process and D is a scalar value. Before execution of an event, we have to increment the timestamp value by D. Okay, so it will be greater than 0 for different applications, but here we are going to consider D is equal to 1. Okay, and R2 says that so while sending of a message, we have to apply the rule maximum of Ci comma C message. Ci is the timestamp of the process. C message is the timestamp which is sent along with the message. Both should be compared and the maximum value will be taken and the rule R1 will be applied here. Okay, so the maximum value will be used to increment the timestamp in place of D. Okay, R1 will be applied and the message will be delivered. Okay, this is the execution. So we'll see a simple example. Consider three processes. So initially all the process will be having a timestamp value of 0. Whenever an event is going to happen, it will be incremented to value 1 after applying rule 1. Now 2 is an internal event. So whenever an internal event happens, it will be incremented to 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. Now at timestamp 2, process P1 sends a message to process P2. So according to the logic of scalar clock, whenever a message is sent from one process to another process, along with the message, the timestamp also will be sent. That is what we call it as C message. So 2 will be sent. So in order to determine the timestamp of receiving process, So we have to compare the C message value and the CI value. CI is the timestamp of the sending process. So 1 and 2 will be compared. Which is maximum? 2 is maximum. Now we are going to apply rule 1 for determining the process. So here what is the timestamp before execution of an event? That is 1. So 1 plus 2 is 3. 3 is the timestamp of the receiving process. Okay. Again an internal event happens, that is 3 plus 1 4. Then 4, again an internal event happened, that is 5. Now at timestamp 5, process P2 sends a message to process P1. So while sending a message, apply rule R2. Maximum of CI, C message will be taking place. Compare 4 and 5, which is maximum, 5 is maximum. Now apply the rule R1 at process P1. So here always increment the value of timestamp on a process from the initial timestamp value, that is 1. So 1 plus 5 is 6. Now an internal event happens, 6 plus 1 is 7. Now a send event happens here. So in order to send a message, 7 will be the timestamp which will be sent along with the message to process P3. 6 and 7 will be compared. Which is maximum? 7 is maximum. So to determine the timestamp of the receiving process, so 1 plus 7 is 8. Okay. So this is how we determine the timestamp using a scalar clock. But here the problem with the scalar clock is like so you can see here, assume there is an internal event that is happening at process P1. It is going to be 3. So at 3 process at timestamp 3, P1 is also having an internal event. Also here P1 sends a message to P2 at time 3. So at an identical timestamp, two different events are happening, which is not consistent. Okay. So that is the problem with the scalar clock. Okay. And next thing is here we can count the event easily because the scalar value is 1. So we can count the number of event, and the height of the communication is it reaches till 8. So the event count is equal to 8. Okay. So 8 communication messages are sent across the processor. So event counting is easy here. But here one of the problem is it is not strongly consistent. It is not strongly consistent because it should be a happen before relation. I told you, in a logical clock there should be a happen before relation, but here you can see that sometimes the message which is sent by process P2, for example, assume we are initiating a message here at an interval 9. Okay. So here the message is sent which is at timestamp 9. According to happen before relation, the message sent at 9 should receive after the previous last message. But what happens here is, assume the message is received here. Okay. So it is not a happen before relation, it is not taking place in order. So the messages are sent across the different processes, but not in a happen before relation order. Okay. The order is changing. So the total ordering of messages is not consistent here. So it is strongly inconsistent here. So the strong inconsistency property and identical timestamp property are the disadvantages of scalar clock. So in order to avoid this inconsistency, we go for vector clock. The second type is what we call it as vector clock. So here vector clock maintains a vector vi of t. So it is actually a matrix which will be having the knowledge of its own timestamp. Consider we are having 3 process C1, and also it has the knowledge of the remaining 2 timestamps of remaining 2 processes. So it is a matrix comprising the timestamp of all the 3 processes. So but in case of scalar timestamp, every process will be knowing its own timestamp. But in case of vector timestamp, every process will be knowing its own timestamp as well as the timestamp of other processes. The same logic is applied here at rule R1. So we increment the timestamp value with the scalar d. Okay, that is d should be greater than 0, but here what we are going to do is we are going to consider d as 1. Okay, we will see an example now. So let us see an example for vector clock. Consider three processes P1, P2 and P3. So according to the vector clock, the timestamp will be in vectors, that is the matrix. So initially it will be 0, 0, 0 for all the processes. Okay, so whenever an event execution takes place, for P1 it will be 1, 0, 0, for P2 it will be 0, 1, 0, and for P3 it will be 0, 0, 1. And whenever an internal event takes place, for P1 the value will be incremented. So first row indicates P1, so it will be 2, 0, 0. Okay, and so assume at 2, 0, 0 a message is sent to process P2. Okay, so when a message is sent, along with the message the timestamp value will also be sent. So here along with the message the timestamp is also sent, that is 200. So that is also sent. Okay, so here you can see the timestamp value is also sent here, and when the timestamp value is sent, the rule 2 will be applied here, that is this is C message value and this is CI value. So both of them will be compared and find the maximum of P1. So in maximum of P1 will be 1 and 2, the maximum will be 2. So now in order to determine the timestamp, write the timestamp value. For first column it will be 2, for the last column it will be 0, but for second column while writing the timestamp value we have to write the maximum value of 1 and 2, which is the maximum value, so it becomes 2 to 0. Okay, now when an internal event happens it becomes 2, 3, 0. Now at 2, 3, 0 P2 sends a message to P3. Okay, so how to determine the timestamp value here? So 230 will be sent as a message to process P3 along with the timestamp will be sent along with the message. And now we have to determine the timestamp value here. For first and second column it will be 2 and 3. But for determining the timestamp for the last column, that is P3, we have to do a comparison of 2 and 3. Which is maximum? 3 is maximum. So we write the timestamp value as 233. So this is how we do the calculation using vector clocks. Okay. The problem with the vector clock is since a vector is used, so there will be high message overhead. Because when the number of messages increases, the matrix size increases, causing a message overhead. But however, it is strongly what we call it as advantages, it is strongly consistent. Since all the processes will be having the maintaining the state messages of the remaining processes, it is easy for a process to determine determine the timestamp value or predict the timestamp value of other process when the message will arrive. So it is said to be strongly consistent. So the disadvantage is message overhead. Okay, that's with the vector clock. Increases, the matrix size increases, causing a message overhead. But however, it is strongly what we call it as advantages, it is strongly consistent. Since all the processes will be having the maintaining the state messages of the remaining processes, it is easy for a process to determine determine the timestamp value or predict the timestamp value of other process when the message will arrive. So it is said to be strongly consistent. So the disadvantage is message overhead. Okay, that's with the vector clock.